You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by DraftKings. Great deal going on. You put in $5 on any of these NBA games, you get $150 in free plays. You just got to be a new customer. All right, now joined by all-time U of A great, 5-time Super Bowl starter, Mr. Glenn Parker. How you doing, Glenn?
I'm fantastic, Mike. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing today?
Of course. Great. All right. You know, a year ago at this time, there was a lot of questions. You know, Jedd Fisch was doing everything right, but it seemed like there had been a little bit of a disengaged alumni base, a little bit of a fan base. A year in, what are your thoughts just kind of on Jedd Fisch and how he's gone about doing everything?
Well, Jed's been really good. First off, saying and doing all the right things as a head coach, coming in where no one knows you. That's number one. Right. He's done that well. Number two, he put together a good staff for his initial staff. Now things will change. Things have already started changing. So that was good. His involvement and embrace of the football alumni was huge. From the very get-go, Zoom meetings with us every 3 weeks, 4 weeks, answering questions. There's a coach on every month talking to the guys. He laid it out right when he got here, he laid out his recruiting strategy, which so many of us wanted to hear, because as you remember back when the Cats were at their best, we're talking the 80s all through the 90s, they always sought to win Arizona. They always sought every player out of the Southern Cal, Inland Empire, San Diego, Los Angeles, Orange County they could get. And then if there was someone that was interested from somewhere else, they got him. I look at like the Singleton twins, the first rounder. They were from, I think, Parsippany, New York, or the Hunleys from Virginia. They found those guys that were interested and wanted to come, but they didn't pursue needlessly guys they probably weren't going to get. And we haven't had that for a long time. And now in comes Jedd Fisch, and it's, hey, we're going to win it. We're going to win Tucson. We're going to win Arizona. We're going to recruit California. And there's going to be some occasional going east. I was like, okay, he obviously had heard all the problems that alumni were having because, when you get coaches from back east, coaches from the Big 12, all they know is Texas, and maybe some Florida.
Right.
And yet, if you look at the SEC, those teams in the SEC all have guys from California. Most of their rosters are made up of, it's kind of, widespread, but you look at Alabama, the amount of California kids they have on it. They've seen they've seen what happens, those teams, when local D1s don't go in, and they started taking over. And now it's hard to get that back.
Now, what happened again? I thought you made a great point. You brought up, the Dick Tomey era. Dick Tomey, obviously his template, a lot of Glenn Parkers, a lot of late bloomers, overlooked guys, that he looked at and said, I can mold this. But he also was able to bring in very highly thought of local guys. Now, again, some panned out, some didn't. But just look at, a Michael Bates was a 5-star first-team parade All-American. A Mike Chaska from Saguaro obviously didn't pan out, but a first-team parade All-American. It seems that in the last couple coaching staffs before Fisch, that the equivalent of those players weren't even giving Arizona a look. What was the disconnect from kind of your era to what's happened 25 years later, 30 years later?
All right. So, the 5-star guys are always going to be 5-star guys. They didn't even have that star ranking back in the day. So it was a lot harder for coaches to evaluate. They had to do more of their homework evaluating.
Right.
The real thing is this. Back up until, Dick Tomey left, it was win now or get fired. It was never win now or get fired the way it is now. A coach came in, as long as he was liked by the players, the fans were in the stands, and they were improving, well, then that coach stayed. And he knew he could develop players. So you could look at those local guys and go, okay, well, we don't know what they're really going to be like versus these guys, but we have time to develop them. So in the star system world, it's like Arizona, it makes no sense for Arizona to go and recruit 5 stars.
Right.
Unless you already have some on the roster, which we didn't. Now Jedd Fisch has done a good job. He's gone out and gotten some pretty good guys. But it always made more sense if you were a Stoops or Rich Rod to go after the guys that are 2 or 3 stars, but they're the guy that's a 2 or 3 star tight end who could be a 5-star tackle.
Right.
He's just a little slow for tight end or whatever.
A John Fina type.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's a perfect example of John. Undersized, tackle, athletic, but undersized. Well, we'll give him 3 or 4 years to fill out. Let's see what happens. And he did. That's the thing coaches used to do, and that's why you're seeing so many players coming out of your FCS level now, particularly when it comes to offensive linemen, because those are the guys that are going to play in the NFL. The guy that's he's a fast kid in high school, but he's a little slow to be the tight end at your level. You give him 3 years and you get 30 pounds on him, all of a sudden he's an all-conference tackle. There's not very few guys in all of the United States. There's probably about 5 kids that are tall enough and heavy enough and good enough coming out to play at the D1, the high Power 5 level. And Alabama and Clemson, they're getting them. No one else. Right. The other kids that come in weighing 300 pounds or 320 are underdeveloped, kind of fatter guys, maybe a little slow. Maybe they've got speed, but they just have more fat. They're going to end up getting hurt, and you're going to cost you a scholarship.
Right.
Unless you have time to develop. But you don't have time to develop. You got to get them on the field because it's win now or get fired. So that's the big change. It used to be about development of players, knowing that you wanted them for the last 2 years of their career, not the first 3. And now it's, what can they do for me right now or I'm getting fired?
Glenn, what do you want to see from the quarterback position this year? Obviously, it was kind of a revolving door this past year. Jedd Fisch brings in a Jayden de Laura, previous Pac-12 freshman of the year. You got a Noah Fifita, who has certainly, raised some eyebrows. Jordan McLeod's back. What is Glenn Parker looking at for the quarterback position this coming year in year 2 of the Fisch reign?
Consistency and lack of turnovers. That's all it is. Get a kid to be a game manager for you first and not screw things up, and then we can start looking at how great they can play. Until then, though, you look at last year. What did we have? 4 takeaways and 23 or 4 giveaways. That you can't win at any level doing that. And so the consistency of not turning the ball over, whether it be the quarterback position or any other position, you just can't give it up. So quarterback, first and foremost, has to be a manager. He's got to be consistent. He's got to be a leader. He doesn't have to be the best player on the team or on the field at that time. Now, if you get a kid who can be that and you let him take his time into that role, that's when you get special quarterbacks.
Now, looking at Arizona this coming year, obviously, again, talking year 2, in the Pac-12 South, ASU is obviously a dumpster fire right now. USC figures to be good, with Lincoln Riley coming in. But from just a win-loss perspective, or just from what you see on the field, what will you know if you're seeing progress? Will it just be, like you said, a lack of mistakes to stop beating yourself, staying competitive? How will you know that progress is being made on the field?
Well, I'll tell you, I thought they were competitive in almost every game last year. But for the most part, they were competitive up until they were just outmanned or tired by the end of the game. I look for this. Fans who think we're all of a sudden going to win 8 games, I would love to caution them, and because I understand how hard it is to win in college. I've been on staffs. I've been around it a long time. It's tough to build a football team. It's so much easier to build any other sport but football. And adding in the transfer portal and all that, it gets worse. But if I see consistency at the quarterback play, a lack of turnovers, and competitiveness, I think we've improved. Now, is it going to translate to wins? Listen, we have an incredibly tough schedule this year.
Right.
I tell people 2 wins is realistic. 3 to 4 wins is over the moon. What an improvement. Fans don't like to hear that, but I would defy you to find wins. You can find toss-ups, and maybe those are the games we pick. But just plain wins on that schedule, I don't see any.
You're an interesting guy, obviously, because you were a late bloomer, didn't play high school football, obviously go to junior college and, really, really establish yourself. But as from Arizona, what is the selling point? If Glenn Parker's on the recruiting staff, what is Glenn Parker selling Arizona football on right now, moving forward the next 2, 3, 4 years as to being part of something big?
Well, obviously, we've proved that we can play at the highest level. It can be done here. It was done in the 80s, done in the 90s. It was done almost, somewhat into the 2000s with both Stoops and Rich Rod. We can turn out NFL players. It hasn't happened recently, but we are going back to what we were. We have to get these guys, and you're one of those guys. So we can turn out NFL guys. I would tout those things. I would tout my staff. My staff has years and years of NFL experience compared to most, and that sells in the living rooms. I would stress my recruiting to the southern part of California and Arizona. And hey, mom, dad, you're a 5 to 6 hour car ride away. You can come and little Johnny's not going to be. I'm going to be his dad while he's here, but he's not going to be so far away that you got to take a flight and you got to figure out how you're going to afford all this. Right here's the place.
Right.
And if I'm then the flip side of this, if I got some kid interested from back east, I'm saying throw away your winter clothes, just get down here.
Right. Yep. Defensively, then, before we let you go, Don Brown last year, it certainly was an improved defense from previous years. He's moved on, obviously. What did you think of year one with Don Brown? What are you looking for in year two from the Johnny Nansen regime?
So year one, Don Brown, I knew him, obviously, Dr. Sack, Dr. Blitz, he was going to bring him to the house, and he always did.
Right.
And kids they feed into that because they all feel they're going to get a chance to get a big play. I don't know. I don't know enough about Nansen. I look, it was an odd hire. He's never been a coordinator, I don't believe. But you know what? Until you're a coordinator, you've never been a coordinator. So I think he's gonna, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I want to see how he comes out. I don't want to make any or snap judgments based on what I don't know. So I'm kind of excited to see what happens during fall camp and going into this year. And as I said, as Jed's, his staff is going to mature, their recruiting is going to mature, who they are, their vision, and their personality as a program, their the character and all that. That's going to mature. All those things are going to happen. It's just, will he get the time? Will he get the years needed to develop the winning attitude and the winners and the recruiting base that he needs? That's the problem in college football today.
Two-part question here, and then we'll let you sign off. And again, I can't thank you enough for your time. Why has it been, you mentioned recruiting in state, why has it been so difficult for Arizona and ASU to be able to keep the good players home, specifically the ones in Phoenix? Obviously, they've, the kids at South Point have moved on as well. And is there a possibility that if Arizona keeps winning and the fact that ASU's obviously encounters some struggles, that maybe you can get a foothold in there?
So, yes, we can get a foothold. I think this is the problem that happened. The two schools owned Arizona up until the mid to late 90s, with the exception of maybe a couple of quarterbacks or whatever that went somewhere else.
Right.
But when I don't remember who it was at ASU, but when Stoops got here, well, actually before him even, Makovic and then Stoops. Like, here's a perfect example of a kid who got away. And a lot of people want to say, okay, it's Chris O'Dowd at South Point because he went to USC. Well, Chris O'Dowd was looking to get out.
Right. But
another kid around that same time that wanted in. And one of the Stoops recruiting guys basically said, we don't have to recruit guys like that anymore. We're better than this. And that was Blake Martinez. And he's only the leading tackler in the NFL to this day. I mean, when things like that start happening and you get people in that don't respect, and I will tell you right now, with my own son's recruiting, people I knew back east said, well, gee, that's bad football. Now, that bad football on any given field had 3 or 4 D1 kids running around. But because it wasn't their local football, they thought it was bad.
Right.
So they didn't recruit. I mean, I'll tell you, Stoops didn't recruit locally that much. Neither did Rich Rod hardly at all. Right. Sumlin did nothing. He didn't look at the local high schools. He barely gave lip service to Bijan Robinson and Lathan Ransom. And never came up to Foothills or Pueblo or any other places I know coaches at. Never showed up. Never was around.
I always felt, too, that it was really indicative of a bigger problem when you've also got John Fina's kid who is at South Point, who has been offered by USC and UCLA, and then Arizona, it seems like, comes in with a token offer. That, to me, Glenn, is just malfeasance.
Oh, it is. That's the problem. And that's what I say. There's an arrogance to not being a Tucson guy. Oh, Tucson football sucks. Phoenix football sucks. And then all of a sudden, Saguaro or one of those teams beats some big school back east, and they want to start looking at these kids. A perfect example is I have a friend whose son I brought to the staff. I said, hey, we got to look at this kid. He's interested. It's my oldest friend in the world. It's his son. He was a running back, safety, linebacker in high school.
Mhm.
One guy on the staff said I'd give him a scholarship right now. The other guys and the head coach all said, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where he'd play. Who's he have offers from? None. I'm giving you a chance to be first. Now, 3 weeks later, they asked me again, hey, let's revisit that kid. I said, too late. They said, what do you mean? I said, he's got offers at Notre Dame, Stanford, USC, Arizona State. I started naming,
Right.
the Alabama, all that. I go, you could have been first. And the biggest problem that happens in college football recruiting right now is guys don't trust themselves. They don't trust their own recruiting, their own evaluations. They always want to know, how many offers does he have? Who's he got offers from? Can you not look at a kid and tell me he can play? And if you can't, then you're never going to be able to coach these kids.
And isn't that your job?
That's your job, but they don't do it. It's the problem also you're seeing in the NFL, by the way. The scouts are the same way. The older scouts all know their guys. The younger scouts always coming out and say, who does this guy remind you of? So they can put something in a report that sounds halfway knowledgeable because they didn't play the game. They've never coached the game or played the game. They're just a numbers guy. They're putting in numbers. So that's what happens with these coaches. They've come to rely on the STAR system and come to rely on other schools offering so that they don't look bad to their fan base if they offer a kid who doesn't have any other offers.
Okay. He's Glenn Parker, again, five-time Super Bowl five-time Super Bowl starter, one of the best linemen to ever come out of the U of A. Glenn, again, you're a beast. I can't thank you enough, my man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Mike. Thanks, man. Anytime. You know that.
I'll talk to you soon. There's Glenn Parker again, Arizona Wildcat. Great. Thanks again. All right, now let's break down a little bit of what Glenn said. But first, obviously, got to pay the bills. DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. Here's the deal. Put in $5, get $150 in free plays on these NBA games. Here's the kick. 21 and up, Arizona only. Gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's the place you go. They'll get you all taken care of. Again, DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. Glenn, as always, is a great interview for a multitude of reasons. First and foremost, because he says what he feels. He's not beholden to anybody. And I thought that he made some very, very good points about how when you're in a place like Arizona, first you got to work. Second of all, you've got to be able to trust your vision right there. And if you've got coaches, if you've got players that don't coaches that don't recruit here, it's just not going to work. You've got a vision that you can sell because, again, Arizona has been successful. When Glenn was playing, before that, after that, the 80s, the 90s, Arizona football was nothing to take lightly. And that's what you got to be able to get back to. And the fact is, too, that Jedd Fisch gets a sign of approval from Glenn Parker is a big deal because if Glenn wasn't in on Jedd Fisch, he would also just say it. That's the kind of guy Glenn is. And that's why we had him on the show. All right. I want to kind of move around here a little bit because a lot of stuff happened this weekend. We're going to talk a little baseball right here. Arizona baseball, it's been an up and down season, a little bit of mercurial stuff going on, but big, you win a series against Oregon State, which has the #1 RPI in the nation. Arizona baseball is, again, about as up and down in entities you're going to find in the country, but they're also a team that once the playoffs start, Arizona baseball is going to be in it, and they're going to be about as good as anybody. They're going to have about as good a chance as anybody because they seem to play up to their competition. Now, a lot of people are wondering why aren't they playing better? Again, it's a different roster. People need to remember this. It's a different roster. Chip Hale is in it for the first time, new coach, obviously. So just give the guy a little bit of time. He knows what he's doing, and I think you could certainly see the upside potential right there that is going on there with Arizona baseball. All right, now let's talk some athletic greens. Athletic greens is something that, if you want to get into shape and you want to be healthy about it, this is where you would go. Athletic greens it's a no-brainer because it's a nutritional supplement. I've taken it. It's got over 7,000 five-star reviews. It costs you less than $3 per day, plus you're investing in your health. That's where you want to be. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply, of immune-boosting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/sons, again, this is athleticgreens.com/sons to take ownership over your health and pick up your ultimate daily nutritional assurances. All right. Said we're going to wrap up some loose ends. Wanted to talk about this a little bit. We talked about Courtney Ramey before. A lot of people asking me, what's the deal with Courtney Ramey? What can he do for the U of A? Just so you know, he is a guy that can play at a very high level. He's done it at Texas. But what's more so than anything is he's not going to be a 35-point-per-game guy. He's not going to be a 25-point-per-game guy. He gives you some athleticism. He gives you some quickness right there that Arizona just doesn't have in the backcourt. So if you can get him, that's a really nice addition. Again, not a game changer, but a really nice addition. And again, Tommy Lloyd isn't just handing out offers here. He's handing out offers to guys that he thinks can play. He's recruiting guys that he thinks can play. And again, Efe Obagidi, another guy like that from Washington State. He would be a game changer on the back end. If Arizona was able to get him, he would fit in very nicely there because he's a guy that, quite frankly, Arizona doesn't really have right now. So there's going to be a lot of movement here in the coming weeks. Dalen Terry, again, I would imagine is coming back. We'll know more there. He's obviously impressed some scouts. I'd still imagine he comes back. But again, we'll keep you up to the loop on that. And again, we're going to be talking a little bit of Arizona women's basketball tomorrow with Brad Alice as well. Talk about the transformation of the Arizona women's basketball team and how we're looking at a possible top 10 entity, that you would bet on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Code word PHNX. Know the drill. Put in $5, get $150 in free plays if you're a new customer. Again, big stuff coming up tomorrow. Brad's coming on. We're working on a special guest for Wednesday as well. But I can't thank Glenn Parker enough. Glenn is the absolute man. We will have him on again. But for Glenn Parker, I'm Mike Luke. We'll be back with you tomorrow on the AZ Wildcats podcast.